You're listening to Self-Leadership with Dr. Benzmann, the podcast for entrepreneurial minds. How important is it for employees to feel safe at work? What can entrepreneurs do to create this psychological safety? Is it enough to promote a positive error culture, or is more needed? Welcome to a new episode of Self-Leadership with Dr. Benzmann, where we explore how mastering self-leadership helps you thrive across all areas of your life. My name is Burkhard Benzmann, and as a consultant, executive coach, and professor, I focus on empowering individuals to navigate the complexities of leadership and personal growth. Psychological safety is the trust that within a team or organization, no one will be punished or humiliated for expressing ideas, questions, concerns, or mistakes. Psychological safety enables open communication and promotes a culture of learning and innovation. Employees feel safe to take risks and contribute authentically. This safety is essential for effective teamwork and problem solving. It contributes to the development of resilience and adaptability in dynamic environments. Today I'm talking about this topic with the recognized expert, Dr. Viktor Oubaid. Viktor has been in a leadership position at the German Aerospace Center since 1999 and is a specialist in aerospace psychology. He has been instrumental in the selection process of the ESA astronauts. As part of his scientific work, he deals with occupational requirements in aviation and medicine, as well as the development of computer-based methods for assessing teams and team efficiency. Additionally, he also works as an independent consultant. Hi, dear listeners. With me is Viktor Oubaid. I already introduced you, Viktor. Where are we right now?
Currently, we're in the center of the city in Hamburg and sitting on the backside terrace of the Motel 1 at the Steindamm.
A bit of advertisement for Motel 1. Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
Yes, we like it.
But they're very kind and they reserved a very silent place for us, as silent as possible.
Yeah.
Having in mind the construction, the noise in the background.
Which is typical, isn't it? There's always something going on.
It's an industrial city.
Yes, absolutely. It's windy here, so my paperwork just flew away.
Flew away.
Yes,
that's aviation.
Absolutely. So that's a good introduction. I already talked a bit in the introduction about where you come from, your background. We talk about psychological safety today. So maybe it's a good idea, first of all, to give your idea of what psychological safety is. So if I'm just came across this, I'd say, is that a good thing? Is that something which is typical for aviation, for example? Has it something to do with my day-to-day life?
There are some questions in these questions, and I would like to address maybe the most important one. This concept is very common in aviation for decades.
Okay.
It's the label is new, or it's well known in the last years in the common society. But in aviation, we practice psychological safety measures, training concepts, selection concepts for a couple of decades, coming from a situation in the 1950s, 60s, when commercial and civil aviation started to increase hugely. Accidents were relatively unattractive.
Yeah.
And so there was a huge need to identify concepts which would increase the level of safety, to maintain safe aviation for travelers and for crews as well. And this kind of crew resource management training, which involves failure culture and some other concepts, is since the 1970s a common ground in aviation.
I see. The funny thing is, I'm sure you just asked the helicopter to find us, kind of.
That's the federal police, I would suggest.
Funny enough.
Come here.
So So were there kind of triggers in the 1950s, like catastrophic things happening with planes crashing, anything like that? Or what were the trigger points for that?
The trigger points practically were the insurance companies. Because you need an insurance to drive an aircraft in civil aviation for commercial purposes. So the interest rates increase as more accidents you produce.
Yes.
So it was a commercial decision to reduce or to increase the level of safety by reducing the number of accidents.
Of course.
Or the severeness of accidents.
Yeah.
Like fatal accidents where people die. And so this commercial decision drove or steered much energy and resources into this field of increasing safety by training, by selection of pilots, and by identifying correct concepts. And these led to aspects that you could define as psychological safety.
Okay. If you'd give us, for the listeners of the podcast, a kind of rough definition of what psychological safety then stands for in this context?
Yeah, it involves, there's, of course, like always, different definitions, but they all have in common that they involve a failure culture where it is where the system, the situation, the organization encourages people to talk about failures, like everyday lapses or real severe failures, and not to find the guilty one, but to identify the contributing factors that led to this failure. And then, of course, in future, to try to avoid these kinds of situations. This is one aspect of failure culture. Yeah. The other very important point is a feedback culture, to reflect on your own behavior. And I would say the last very important aspect of the definition involves creating situations, workplace situations where people feel secure and safe to operate, to bring their best performance. And then you have to have feedback culture and failure culture to open up, to find the best way, to strive for the best. And this needs people who are feeling encouraged to give their best.
I know, for years and years, and I know that you have been working in totally different cultures. I can imagine that this concept of psychological safety might be easier to implement in the Western than maybe in other regions of the world. Is that true?
And my opinion is, or my perception is that in commercial aviation, we find a common understanding of what contributes to safety worldwide.
Okay.
That's not a question of Asia versus Europe versus America or whatever.
Australia.
Australia. So this Western concept of cockpit culture, of crew culture, of training culture is well known over the world and is accepted over the world, despite the cultural differences that, of course, exist in the adaptation of these kind of concepts. But I would say it's not a typical Western style. We found out that's the safest way to drive aircrafts.
I see.
That's the easy thing.
But let me try with one example to find out. I've been reading about something like a Korean airline crash I'm not sure, in the 70s or something like that.
Long ago, the 747.
Yeah, the incident where, as far as I remember, the senior pilot, or the first officer, you will correct me in the right expressions, but the senior was on top, and the co-pilot wasn't allowed in the culture of the days long ago to say, we are heading for a mountain. No, this can't be. I'm the senior, so there is no
I'm
more
the captain.
I'm the captain. So that was one incident I thought was very crucial in changing the perspective of how to handle these kind of situations. Is that correct?
I would say this is an individual failure in applying this kind of, let's say, culture, the cockpit culture, the technology culture into operation.
Yeah.
So if you're not able to identify people who feel good in this kind of cultural environment and to bring their best performance, then you have, of course, problems. If people are not able to overcome hierarchy, for instance, by their personality, because their personality doesn't allow them to work on an equal base in a team, then of course, if you are on the top of the team, and you have a wrong perception, then the story is over.
Yeah.
So, like in this Korean accident, but this accident involved more factors. It was not only the captain who has a misperception or a lack of situational awareness. It was the co-pilot who didn't feel able to stand up, be assertive enough.
Yeah.
And I mean, there were other contributing factors in this accident.
Yeah.
It's long ago.
Yeah.
And the history of this safety philosophy was always, let's learn from the past in order to have a safer future.
Yeah.
So there was a purpose for these accidents, at least one purpose, to learn what happened.
And change of mindset.
Yeah. And this is something that you can apply to any kind of life areas, like on society or on another workbench, if you like.
Yeah. Before we kind of land in in the day-to-day normal situations in companies, for example, or organizations all over the world, I'd like to stay higher up, let's say in space.
Yeah.
So how does this kind of approach, mindset, apply to astronauts? Because of course you've been dealing with astronauts and finding out who are the right persons to be on top of the world.
I mean, that's the platinum case for safety, psychological safety.
Absolutely.
Because indeed you have a very high level of concentration of all hazardous aspects that you can think of.
Yeah.
You have explosive material, you have a lack of oxygen, lack of gravity.
Mechanical problems with latches.
Exactly. And you have weight problems, you can't carry what you want.
Yeah.
You have to carry the lightest version of a technical part of an engine, because it's very expensive and it needs much energy to transport it to space, to the orbit. So you have strongly restricting factors in establishing an acceptable level of safety. And this is something that all the astronauts know. We know that there could be also a kind of improvement, but we cannot afford it. We cannot send another crew. We cannot build the ISS from other material to be more protective or whatever.
Or have a third backup mechanism or whatever.
A third or fourth backup or whatever.
Yeah.
So they are fully aware that this is a risky workplace, but they decided to go for that once in their life. Coming from a childhood dream, maybe, I want to be an astronaut when I'm old, when I'm grown up. But practically, they had to apply. They had to went through a long-lasting selection process involving medical certification, psychological assessments, political assessment, like from which country can we pick up the future astronauts in Europe. I speak for Europe. And this is something that gives you always another opportunity to think of your decision. Yes, I'm still on the right track. I want to be an astronaut. There are the risks, but I want to go. It's like if you would ever ask Columbus to go there, he would say, "You're kidding, of course."
Yes.
Or Shackleton in Antarctica. The people have a very strong need to do something, this or that. And on the side of the astronaut is exploring space and maybe something contributing to human society. I don't know. That's a personal motivation. But they take these challenges and they estimate them as more important as the risks they will take personally. And this is something that contributes to the psychological safety, because they are they take a fully aware decision of the steps they have to go and the risks they have to manage.
Yeah. When we see popular science fiction films, for example, we quite often come across conflicts on board because of the claustrophobic situation, things like that. How do you... Can you prepare the people for these kind of circumstances on board? Or is it the most important thing to find the right people with the right traits? So to avoid getting in this kind of situation that we see in science fiction movies.
Yeah.
Because they quite often seem to be sociopaths who somehow could get on board. It's not only the aliens, it's the
alien is inside the spaceship.
Yes.
Yeah, of course, that's a movie, but there was one movie that was called The Right Stuff.
Oh, yes.
And this is the right answer.
Yeah.
If it's like, to give you an example, if you have a problem on your water system in your house, you call a plumber.
Yeah.
You don't call an electrician.
Yeah.
You don't call an electrician that you can apply a little bit of plumbing training on. So you pick the right person, and then you hope that his qualifications will be enough to manage the problem.
Yeah.
And this is the way we understand psychological selection. We pick up the right people that we think that they will be best prepared in managing situations like this.
Yeah.
Because they are aware, if we start to fight each other, then we have a problem.
Yeah.
We will not manage, we will not complete our mission.
Yes.
And and this contributes, it's one driver from the side of psychological safety. Hey, listen, don't continue fighting.
Yeah.
Because it will reduce your safety level.
Yeah. When we try to apply these kind of knowledge to day-to-day situations in organizations, companies, etc., I think we might come across something that we quite often find: teams, people working together that didn't go through this kind of scrutinizing first. So quite often you have suboptimal situations, kind of. Can we still apply something? Can we learn something that we can kind of transfer, like for a day-to-day leader?
Yeah. I mean, it's not a disease you can cure. You can always apply some kind of medication or treatment.
Yeah.
And to go back to this example that you gave, it's important to know how the people are that are part of my team. If I know this is a sociopath, this is a introverted, this is a smart, brilliant person, and this is a dumb one.
Yeah.
I have to combine their specific profiles in a way that's best for the team.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't consider the sociopath being the team leader, because this is not the best opinion.
Yeah. That's a recipe for disaster.
Or maybe not the person with low intelligence, low mental abilities, but I would pick automatically the smartest one, because this could also contribute some problems. If this person is really brilliant, she or he will never understand why the others do not understand.
Yeah, because they are not on the same level for him or her.
And then this person will not be able to keep them as a team together, to keep this constitution of a team on a high level. And so I would go for someone who has a personality profile which is open for others, a bit empathetic, understanding, but on the other side also being able to take decisions.
Yeah.
Many people who are on the soft side of personality, like empathy high and agreeableness high or something. Sometimes most of them tend to be a little bit, laid back in social situations, not striving for decision or power.
Yeah.
And so you have to find people who are balanced. And this is exactly what we did for astronaut selection and what we do for pilot selection.
Yeah.
And air traffic controllers, for instance, that we don't look for the top leader from all. These people can be presidents or whatever, prime ministers.
Yeah.
We need people who are able to lead, but at the same time being able to follow.
Yeah.
Leadership, followership. We already talked once about this aspect. And this is something, if you have people in your team who have this leadership and followership quality, doesn't matter in what industry you are, you have very high probability to have an effective team, an efficient team.
I'm using your knowledge now to prepare myself for a workshop that I will have in May in Cyprus with a shipping company. And you know the one. We don't talk names, but I'd like to prepare myself. So if we try to kind of transfer this, for example, onto the selection process of captains, what would you suggest?
In marine operation, as far as I know, I'm not totally in the industry, but you have a very strong hierarchy of the level of officers on the one side and the regular employees on the ships, because they're two very different populations. And this can cause, of course, problems. We know there are accidents in marine operation, and the understanding of contributing factors always reveals at the end of the day the same factors like in other areas, like in aviation or in space or in high-risk industries.
So personal errors then? Personal kind of misbehavior?
Yeah, personal errors contributing to the disaster in one way or the other.
Yeah.
There are some specific factors in marine operation. It's not that you're like, if you compare it with a pilot on an airplane, this takes 12 hours to get from A to B.
Yeah.
With a ship, it may take 2 months or 3 months. And depending from the route that you take, you have some pirates somewhere, some other restrictions, so some really dangerous aspects in your operation, and you're just hanging somewhere, and then of course you need to cope with the stress that this time away from home, time on sea with all these dangers can cause. And so the selection of officers on a ship would start at the same point, in my opinion, like with other operators in high-risk occupation, because it's high risk. When an oil tanker collides with something, we have a real catastrophe.
Absolutely.
So
but there are minor in. It depends. There are conflicts on board. There are situations that go wrong, like you have something in your cargo, and things shift because someone didn't actually fix it.
Exactly.
It's obviously simple things, but they lead to catastrophic damage. So I'm thinking about what could we say for people trying to establish processes in finding the right people on the sea level, which is the officers on board, the captains and the
first officers, navigators.
Yes. What could we say needs to be there to get the right people there and to find the wrong ones and not
to identify them.
Absolutely, first of all.
Methodology-wise, it's first of all, you have to understand the job requirements. But this is a question of methodology. I would say if we take the knowledge that we already have about accidents on boats, on ships, on vessels, and we compare it to aviation or space, there are always some core concepts where people have to have the right, profile. The example with the cargo load that you just gave is a perfect example of not applying rules. Not being able to, obey all laws and rules and procedures. So you need people who have an inner interest to follow procedures. Not too high. Because then the ship will never start.
Of course. But let's stick to this example. Maybe it's helpful, eye-opening, whatever. Let's say, oh, that's nice. He's a captain with empathy. I, as a deckhand, feel very comfortable there, so I can cut corners. So what happens then? Because
time is limited. We have to get off that port, and
there's lots of rules and regulations. So I need a shortcut here and there. Otherwise, we won't make it. What would you say?
Fine. I see the trouble the person is in, or the perception of situation, but it's a wrong application of risk assessment. I mean, you can say we have to find a shortcut. Our time at the port is running, against us. We are running against the clock. So we have to get off. We have to hurry up.
Yeah.
Fine. We all know that it's a very intense business.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, do you want to risk your vessel?
Yeah.
With this in your mind?
Yeah.
So is that the thing that you want commercially?
Yeah.
So you have to start from management level, say, we need you to be very quick in the port, but we need you being very quick, but having the right risk assessment level.
Yeah.
So whenever you think the risk doesn't allow to hurry up, to take a shortcut, then go for the procedural way.
Yeah, or raise your hand. Raise
your hand. Trouble. We cannot manage.
Yeah. So what I'm very fond of is some methods that I heard from you that are a day-to-day practice in aviation, which is before a plane actually takes off, you have a briefing.
Yeah.
Bloody long time before that, you have a briefing, because otherwise they might not even get on board.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, you have a debriefing as well. Yeah. And I think these kind of procedures would make sense to implement much deeper, much more, coherently in whatever organization we talk about, the ships as well. Is that something that is very typical for aviation and that could be applied kind of easily to other organizations?
Yeah. Yes, I think so. Briefing and debriefing is, of course, common to a shipping crew.
Yeah.
They will, of course, brief what will happen, what kind of load is in the cargo bay, and so on. But the concept or the content of that, what is briefed before the operation starts, is to have also these things in mind that you don't think of. And for instance, if you make a crew for a 747 or A380 or whatever, a large aircraft, let's say about 20 people on board in the crew, consisting like 2 to 3 people in the cockpit and the rest is in the cabin. They have first a solo briefing, a cockpit briefing, and a cabin briefing, and then they join for a crew briefing
all together,
where they identify possible problems and in their processes, the cockpit crew has information about the weather conditions on the flight. They can share this information with the cabin so that at that point we cannot start with our service because we will have some turbulences. So this works for all easier, not only easier, but safer.
Yeah.
Because when they know we don't have to start the breakfast service at that time.
Yeah.
We will not have people flying through the cabin.
Of course.
There once, twice a year, there's an accident somewhere where people came into a clear turbulences and then they just jumped through the cabin and they hurt themselves. So if you know all this, you can't predict them,
of course,
these clear turbulences. But if you have regular turbulences, you can identify this is an area where we experience it.
And you have standard procedures for that.
And we have standard procedures.
Which are trained, because I think that's another thing. The one thing is the routines, the rituals you have when you go on board and when you leave the aircraft, for example, which could, as far as I see it, be applied to any project or any whatever travel there is, and to other organizations as well. And I think the other things are standard procedures.
Exactly.
Like talking about this is what could happen or what has been happening with other planes, and what shall we do then? Which is the most helpful kind of behavior?
Yeah.
Is that the case?
Yeah. I mean, if the listeners could easily search the internet for a checklist or a standard procedures, SOP, standard operational procedures, for one aircraft or for one airline. You find dozens in the internet.
On the okay.
You find from the manufacturer, you find checklists. And then keep in mind, all this, what is written in this checklist is well known to the crew already. They know what they read for 1,000 times.
but still they go through it.
Still they go through
word.
each item.
Yeah.
And try to give a feedback. Yes, okay, checked. Okay, so now we can start.
Very interesting, because that needs discipline as well.
Exactly. This is the procedural discipline aspect of personality. You must feel fine to apply these procedures. You don't have to have the feeling, oh, I know all this.
Yeah.
We don't have to go for it. I know the area. I don't carry the map with me today. There were pilots exactly stating this. I don't need the map today. I know the area. I know the airport.
Yeah. But still, and that's interesting, because I can imagine that this is difficult to kind of establish and to have the discipline to really follow it point by point, number by number.
Yeah.
So you need the right people who are able, and you to have the discipline and the psychological profile.
Yeah.
Not to be kind of a spontaneous artist and saying, the page 1, you know it all, it's okay, isn't it?
And this is a good example for applying psychological safety.
Yeah.
Now imagine your top leader, your CEO, whatever, tells you in a briefing, I know all this, what happened today.
Yeah.
We don't have to go through all the details.
Yeah.
Psychological safety would demand that someone says, I don't think so. I don't feel fine with this way. I'm used to apply procedures, and let's have a common picture for all. If it's the case and you did know everything, it's great, wonderful, but let's give it a try.
Yeah, but this then you need at least one person with courage.
Yeah, and this is, but you don't get psychological safety by teaching only. You need people who can respond to this concept.
Yeah.
And if you don't have the courage, then someone else have to have it.
Yeah, courage, discipline, a couple of traits.
And then you learn from this other person that it's worth to speak up and to stand up and say, no, I don't feel fine like this.
So this means courage, discipline, and that means a kind of corporate culture that has been growing for a couple of time, where people expect to follow the rules, or to talk about it, like briefing, debriefing, having rituals, follow the rituals, and not skipping page 1 to 15, and then say, I think the turbine looks fine.
It's great.
Let's take
looks
off.
Like yesterday.
Yes, not bad. Yeah.
But this old saying, crap rolls downhill.
Yeah.
If the leader level doesn't live this concept, you don't have to apply on an employee level.
I didn't know that one. That's a good one. What can an entrepreneur, let's say we have listeners there in different positions in companies, we have entrepreneurs, we have CEOs. What can I apply to my day-to-day business? If I listen to that and think about it, what do you think could be 1, 2, 3 things to straight away apply to day-to-day leading jobs?
If I jump in the shoes of an entrepreneur, this is maybe the most extreme example. A CEO has always a structure, a structure. Entrepreneur, maybe not. He has to create a structure and an organizational culture. And this is, I think, something you should start every day. What is my understanding of organizational culture? This is something that you prepared in advance.
Yeah.
In the moment you identify, okay, I have a great business idea. I want to go for it.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the first wave. But then the second wave will be, okay, how can we manage all this process? I have to get so many people on board.
Yeah.
So many processes. I have other companies that I have to connect with, and marketing, sales, everything. So then in the morning, you have to think a moment, okay, what's my company culture? And what is something that I can do today for it?
Like fostering.
Like the Pathfinder say, can I do something good today?
Yeah.
This old Pathfinder
motto.
Saying. Yeah, this motto.
Yeah.
So what can I do to foster my company culture, to improve it, even to have better profit in the future?
Yeah.
I mean it's a money story at the end of the day, and so if you once understand that with the right people, with the right culture, you can reach far more than with the wrong people and the wrong culture.
Absolutely, but that touches on one point that's at least in my perspective very important. There might be people on board that are not able to work in these conditions, because we talked about courage, we talked about discipline, we talked about rituals, etc., to create this kind of psychological safety. So this means you obviously will come across someone that you have to say, sorry, you don't fit into this. You have to go.
Or you have to adapt in a way that maintains an acceptable level.
Yeah.
So you cannot change your personality. That's fantasy.
Yeah.
But what you can do is you can restrict your behavior.
Yeah.
Or you can try to work on, like, let's take for instance, decency. You can work on your decency. Yeah. If you're really if you're motivated, you can work on your decency. Yeah. So that's not a problem.
So one thing,
I have one other that you can do. Maybe something for an entrepreneur. In a small company, you have maybe 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 employees. So business processes are running like this, tuck, tuck, tuck. You send your mails or your messages around in the team. Can you do this for me? Can you do this for me? Keep in mind that this is always a very strict hierarchy way to communicate. No one will say, no, I don't have time. You will never find this response in your email.
Yeah, normally not.
Now think in the kind of, time planning schedule for your own day. Once you will go to the coffee machine or take a tea or whatever, this will take some minutes. You will grab your cup and go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Why don't you take the coffee, go to the colleague that you wanted to send a mail and say, I need to talk to you for 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes. It's better to send a mail.
Yeah.
So combine your coffee break with a communication, with a conversation with a colleague instead of sending mails.
Absolutely. Yeah. As long as it's a small company, this will work. But on the other hand, I think as a CEO of a, let's say, 40,000 whatever employee company,
a little bit difficult.
You still can take time. For example, I worked with one CEO, and he was in that situation that he say, "I'm losing contact to all these people because they're all over the world," and we worked on short messages that kind of really came from the heart. I think they did, and we tried to establish this short kind of video messages.
Yeah.
And this was
a great idea.
That was something, at least. Of course, there was a one-way communication, but at least kind of it came from the heart. It was authentic, and I think that really helped a lot to create this kind of situation that fosters safety, feelings, whatever, things like that.
People like authenticity.
Yeah.
So authenticity. If these kind of messages transport a level of authenticity, then it works.
Yes.
People understand, okay, that's him behind the camera. It's not a mask.
And even if he or she is sometimes grumpy, as long that's
how life is.
Kind of consistent, I think that's okay. Maybe that's part of creating this kind of psychological safety, so that they can count on that you are the same that you were yesterday. And not this kind of manager type that seems to be flexible as a bar of soap.
I mean, yes. Sometimes you understand this, the messages that you hear from the staff around the CEO. Now, today he's in India, tomorrow he's in Los Angeles, then he's there. You think, what kind of a life? He's always in the aircraft, always on meetings. I mean, it's a very demanding position, being a CEO in a big company, of course. But you must be aware that you give a certain picture
absolutely
to your employees, that you're not available.
Yeah. And that was one of the reasons that we said we should come up with some kind of video message every other week, something like that. And that was helpful. And of course, to create some kind of open space situations where they could communicate like online.
I think also it's sometimes important. Not everyone in the company understands the really role of a CEO, and this might be different in each company, but it's the contact with the outside environment is a very important part of this. It's not reading, numbers all the day, taking decisions. Spreadsheets, whatever. There are enough people to do this work.
Absolutely.
But this person has another role. And I think this is something that a CEO could pick up in the mind and say, okay, sometimes maybe I give just a short explanation. I do this today. I'm flying there because exactly for this is my job to go there, not someone else should go there.
But absolutely, that was the content. That was the content.
Yeah, great.
This
great.
CEO
Wonderful.
was talking about in the short video clips. By the way, maybe I have to nudge him to do it. Continue.
Maybe you should listen to this now.
I'm sure. Let's come to the point of self-leadership. Of course, this is my main topic, self-leadership. What can we do for ourselves to find our part in creating psychological safety in the surroundings we are in our teams, in our kind of roles that we have in our companies and organizations? Self-leadership, I think, first of all, is understanding who you are. So what would you say, like coming from picking astronauts, pilots, etc. What's the role of self-leadership in all of that?
Self-leadership is leadership in the other direction, and it's the base for leadership, for leading others. You must be able to lead yourself before you can lead others, because then otherwise leadership wouldn't work.
Yes.
So what you can do is, of course, as I do for myself, I have some routines that I follow strictly.
Yeah.
Every morning I have some yoga practice, like 5 to 10 minutes, not more, since 12 and a half years.
Okay.
I missed it one day.
Yeah.
In this 12 and a half years.
That's something.
Yeah, because I thought it's something which makes the mind empty for a moment.
Yeah.
You don't think of something, because if you start thinking, you are not able to perform this exercise anymore.
Yeah.
It's not the spiritual yoga that it must be, a real world one for me. So, but this exercise every morning gives me a starting point for the day. And it's always the same starting point. Doesn't matter what happened yesterday, a bad day or great day, where I am. I can start from there, and then, everything else develops from this point. Yeah. So this is self-leadership for me, not because my back doesn't hurt anymore. This is one nice effect, but the main effect is an added value, exactly. I decide over the starting of the day, not someone else or not something else. I take control, and this locus of control is something that you need to support with routine.
Yes,
you don't get it every day automatically.
Makes sense.
So this is something that all people that I know have something like this in order to take control, to be in control.
Yeah, I'm with you. As you know, I have my different combination of rituals, like meditation, and then asking myself my personal four questions, like what's the most important thing of today, and things like that. So that's always the case. That's like brushing my teeth.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I don't have to think about it. I don't have to have a lot of discipline. It's just ingrammed kind of in my head. Yeah. That's the normal thing.
Yeah. And this brushing your teeth is a very good example. If someone of the listeners now think, okay, this yoga guys, I don't trust them. My wife always tell me, go for yoga, do something for your back or whatever. Then ask yourself, well, you brush your teeth every morning. Yeah. Please explain it to me. Yeah. And the explanation is, of course, I don't want to lose my teeth.
Yeah. On the one hand, and it's normal. Yeah. I think the same thing, because you don't need much energy as soon as it's the normal thing to do. Yeah. Then you don't have to invest a lot of energy because it's the normal thing to do.
Yeah. And you don't waste time.
Yeah.
there's no excuse, of course.
Yes.
You can say, I don't have my equipment with me or something.
Yeah.
You just lay down on the floor whatever. It can be in a tent on the Himalaya, can be also somewhere in a nice hotel at your home.
At the Motel 1, for example.
The Motel 1, for example.
Very good. To close this conversation, because I'm very sure we'll have another one in the not too far future, which projects are on the horizon for you? Is there anything special going on?
Yeah, wow.
Will you go to the ISS before it comes down by yourself?
No, I applied for it. Unfortunately, they didn't take me. They said we need psychologists on the ground, not on the orbit.
Yeah.
No, I'm currently working. Last time we were talking about some projects that I'm heading for. These projects are running fine, and now I'm looking for new airlines to make business. Let's put it like this. To contribute to their safety level.
Very good. So you are still available for shipping companies?
Yeah.
Very good, because I take that with me.
I'm interested especially in shipping because, we had all this exchange before, and I found it so interesting as an industry.
Yeah.
It's like, for me, it's like gold digging feeling a bit. It sounds like fun.
Yeah.
And in a way, magnetic.
Yes, and it's important, of course.
Yeah, exactly.
The flow of goods.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the people behind it.
Yeah.
Very good. So, Viktor,
But on your side, is there something on the track?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I kind of let it slip through my lips. I talked about it a bit, that I'm about to do a workshop in May on Cyprus. And I'm really looking forward to that. The last workshop in Cyprus for a different company is now 2 years ago. And it's the same for me. I think it's a totally interesting business. I work in absolutely different businesses on the sea level. It could be an organization which is non-profit. It could be a shipping company. It could be totally different organizations. But I'm with you. I think shipping companies, especially looking at the things in the next 5 to 10 years happening, figure out with them, how can we develop concepts? Are there things to do differently? Are there things to do totally new? What about innovation in these, like CO2 emissions, different fuels, etc., and taking people literally on board for that, and helping to train them and to pick them up, the right ones, and to create functional teams that actually do great jobs.
Great.
Yeah, that's so. I take your ideas with me, and I think I have a couple of ideas for the future to work on. So
that's good leadership.
And you should still be available for that.
I am.
Very good, very good. Viktor, it was a pleasure. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Burkhard.
You're welcome.
Thank you for joining me on Self-Leadership with Dr. Benzmann. Until next time, stay committed to leading yourself with purpose.